Fantastic stuff. And now please welcome to the stage, a man who plays Captain Nichols in Warhorse, Mr. Tom Hiddleston. And the co-writer of Warhorse, Richard Curtis. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Nice to see you.
Is this on?
Yeah. I think it's on. Richard, nice to see you. So, gentlemen, how did you get involved with this film? You can't say no when Steven Spielberg comes knocking on your door, can you?
You got involved before I did.
Yeah, no, it was a curious thing. I did say maybe. I did say wait, because what happened is I was having tea with a friend of mine who works with him. And Stephen came in and they started talking about it and said, would you like to have a look at it? Because it was sort of stalled. And I said, let me go away for a week, see what I would do, and then come back. And after a week, when I'd seen the play, read the book, I then sent my exam paper to Stephen, and he marked it, and I got 8 out of 10, and that was just enough, and so I got the job.
Okay, so you were aware, obviously, of Warhorse, but you hadn't seen the play,
no.
Or you hadn't read the book?
No. And in fact, I read the book out loud to my daughter to try and get the dramatic experience of the book rather than a literary experience of the book.
Oh, that's interesting, because obviously the book is narrated by Joey.
Yeah.
What voice did he use?
Yeah.
No, but I tell you, while I was writing the film, I did have horse days where I would just be the horses, and I have a partner's desk with my girlfriend. And on those days, she said I neighed and pawed and the whole way through. So I have done a lot of horse impressions.
Fantastic. Well,
Tom could ride me. He can ride horses. He's very proud of riding now. But anyway, you asked him how he got involved.
So Tom, how did you get involved?
Actually, it was all in the middle of making Thor around that time. And I was back in the UK for a brief second for my dad's 70th birthday, and we took him away on holiday, and just before I was due to fly back to LA, my English agent called and said, look, I know this isn't ideal, but I'm going to email you some size tonight. You've got to put yourself on tape tomorrow, and then you can fly back to LA. And I was like, I haven't got time to prepare, and anyway, what is it? And he said, well, it's top secret, but I know that it's Warhorse. I said, well, how do you know that? And he said, well, because I recognize the characters' names.
Okay.
Because he represents Luke Treadaway, who played Albert in the very first National Theatre stage production, and he recognised Albert, Captain Nichols. Hang on a second, they're talking about Joey. So anyway, I put myself on tape very, very quickly in my agent's office, obsessively perfectionist about my reading, which is the scene where Nichols buys the horse.
Which we'll see soon.
See a little bit, and then I flew back to... at the time, also, my agent said it's being directed by Clint Eastwood. And I was like, right. Well, I'm never going to get it, because it's Clint, and he can pick anyone he likes. So anyway, I put myself on tape and thought, I just want to do a good job, and went back to LA and thought nothing about it. In the middle of hanging off the edge of the Rainbow Bridge, I took a call from my American agent who said, Steven Spielberg wants to meet you next week. And I said, why? And they said, well, he's directing Warhorse, and he loved your tape. So anyway, I drove over there, and we sat down and talked about Thor and how much he had admired Kenneth Branagh. And strangely, I'd started to ride at that time, because we were practicing a riding sequence along the Rainbow Bridge, which is very brief in Thor, but I had fallen in love with horse riding anyway. And I was galloping up and down riverbeds in a place called Simi Valley, which were... What's that?
I live there.
This lady lives in Simi Valley. Anyway, so these riverbeds are kind of peopled with this beautiful young woman, but also with rattlesnakes and coyotes, and that was where I was learning. And then eventually, I sort of said, he said, "Do you ride?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And then, quite suddenly, he said, "I'd like you to do it."
Wow,
you could have had a beard conversation. He might have wanted to see you about beards.
He might have, but I didn't have my beard then, unfortunately.
So you had you were in full Loki, not costume, obviously when you went to see Steven Spielberg, but you had the look. So on tape you were
on tape. I had long blue black hair, and he said he wasn't bothered by that, and but yeah, it was Anyway, there we go.
So nothing from Loki seeped into your read on tape.
I did actually tell him. I said, look, I think I should probably cut my hair and change it color. And he said, yeah, I think it's a little dark right now. But that's how I got involved.
Fantastic. Well, I think we have a series of clips. So we set up the first one. Richard, if you can, it's the scene from the very beginning of the film.
Yes, the Albert's dad has gone to market to buy a sensible workhorse, and he's seduced by the beauty of the little young horse that he sees, and also by a sense of competitive anger that his landlord thinks he can buy anything. So he rashly, for all the money he has, buys the horse Joey.
Fantastic. Let's take a look.
30 guineas? He's not worth 10. Are you out of your mind? What about the rent?
Strong one, Rosie. Look at the way he holds his head.
How the hell are we going to pull anything with that? Ted, you have to take him back. You have to take him back. Right now, you have to get down on your knees and beg for our money back.
No, please, don't take him back.
Can't take him back until he's broken in.
And how are you going to train a horse with that leg?
I'll train him.
No, you stay out of this, Albie. You don't know nothing about horses.
Please, Mum. Please let me. I can do it.
You have to keep him. No choice.
Right. Well, you've got 1 month to break him in, or I'm taking him back myself.
I believe the part where the horse hits Peter Mullen in the face was entirely improvised. Is that true?
Yeah, well, the working with those horses was incredible because there were 14 different horses who played Joey, and they don't know they're in a film. They're just behaving. And the sort of holy grail of acting for camera is really about trying to get close to behavior as opposed to performance. And they had so much to teach us about that. But the horse playing with rubbing himself up and down on the back of Peter Mullen's jacket and all that hat stuff was totally improvised and spontaneous, and Stephen loved it and everybody around with it. And there are lots of things like that in the film where the horse would do something utterly accidental and it would look like the most beautiful piece of acting you've ever seen.
Absolutely. And Richard, can you talk about the challenges of this script? First of all, tonally, I guess, because it starts off, it's very broad, very lush in a way, emotionally at the beginning of the film, but it gets darker gradually. It goes into some very, very dark territory. Was it difficult to handle that as a screenwriter, to tread?
Look, it was a joy working with Stephen. It wasn't very scary working with him because he's very fertile of mind. So if you come up with one idea, he'll say, or you could do this, or this, or this, or this. And you just steal his best idea and then say it's yours. But in a way, the real challenge that we had was more to do with the structure of it and with trying to, I think, make each world 360 degrees to try and give the feeling that you could have given a whole film to each of those worlds, so that we were starting again time after time. And
so in case people don't know, the film structurally follows Joey.
It's a sort of baton. Yeah. We talked about it like a relay race.
Yeah.
Joey keeps moving through. And in fact, the first thing that I did when I came on board was take Albert, the boy, out of the middle of the movie. Because when I read the novel to my daughter, and in the novel he disappears because Joey the horse only sees who he sees.
Yeah.
And when we got to the end and Albert came back in again, I had trouble reading because I was crying, and she had trouble listening because she was crying. And I thought, well, that's enough. That is going to work. So we can take the big risk of pulling Albert out and then going with the more radical structure.
And the play is structured in a
the play puts Albert back in more, interweaves him. I think because, I mean, partly one of the, I hope I hope everyone reads the book, 'cause it's the most beautiful book. And if you can see the play, see the play. And each of these things has been able to add a new dimension. And the film does have the extraordinary horses and does have this extraordinary epic beauty and size. You know, the No Man's Land is No Man's Land.
Did the fact that it was a World War One movie, did that give you pause in any way? Because you're responsible for one of the great works about World War One, and Blackadder Goes Forth, which is just amazing. Were you worried about mining the same territory? Or?
Not really, no. I mean, I had more pause about doing Blackadder, which did seem like a risky proposition to try and be funny about one of the worst things that ever happened. So no, I was delighted to revisit the war in in a completely different way, and I was really thrilled at the premiere here. My 10-year-old son was given the job of handing Prince William a book of the film beforehand. So he described it the day before. He said, "You realise tomorrow is the most important day of my childhood." And we went through all this stuff, and he saw the princess, and he stood next to Stephen, and then we watched the movie, and we got into the cab afterwards, and he said, "I've learnt one thing from tonight." And I thought he was going to say, you know, royals are just like normal people, or I shouldn't get nervous. And I said, "What did you learn?" And he said, "I've learnt you must never ever go to war. It's stupid thing." So I love still being engaged in the issue of telling people how foolish war is.
Absolutely. But there's a wonderful thread that runs throughout the film and really comes together towards the end, if anyone has seen it, and if not, look forward to it, about decency in war, and decency coming out in people, I mean, on both sides.
It's the sort of key, we both feel in the end that's the key message of the film, and I think by the end of the film you feel this tremendous sort of yearning for peace, because everybody the horse encounters on both sides pretty nearly is full of a sort of common sense of decency and a hope that it will end.
And the horse is an emblem of our capacity for courage and hope, and it's sort of the talisman, if you like, of the horse appeals to the best in our humanity, and that somehow everybody who comes into contact with Joey, be they English or German or French, or if they're officer class or privates, they're reminded of something that's innately good within themselves. And I think to make a film about that subject, really, our capacity for love set against the backdrop of one of the most horrific acts of atrocity that we committed against each other, is a very beautiful thing to make a film about.
Absolutely. It strikes me as well that in the war sequences, at least, there's not really an overt villain in the movie. Was that again a deliberate?
The enemy is war itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Let's talk about Captain Nichols next, Tom. I mean, there's a clip first where we meet Captain Nichols. If you can set it up.
So this is the moment in the film where Joey and Albert have been friends for a while, and they've become almost like spiritual brothers. And war is declared in the summer of 1914, and the world has changed. And Captain Nichols is an officer in the North Somerset Yeomanry, which is a regiment of the British Cavalry, and he's arrived in the village in Devon to scout for mounts. And Ted Narracott, played by Peter Mullen, sells Joey to Captain Nichols for 30 guineas. And Albert is not